Blessings, beautiful souls. This is Jules, and this is the Becoming BioQuantum podcast slash YouTube. And today we are going to be talking about ascending emotion into frequency, or what it is to experience emotion as frequency. And, just the other day, somebody forwarded me a post. I'm assuming it was on Facebook or something, and it said that love is an emotion, it's a frequency. And I was like, yes, that is so true. And but we also have to think about what emotion really is. And emotion is connected to the chemical responses of our body. And if you really think about it, that is true because emotion is something that fluctuates. And I like to see emotion as the Hertz wave, and then the frequency of emotion, if you will, is a scalar wave. And a Hertz wave is something that diminishes over time and space, and we have to recreate something in order for that frequency to be released again. So, a perfect example of that would be playing a note on the piano. That frequency is released as the piano is played, and then over time, that frequency leaves and it's no longer there. Well, what does that feel like? Oh, I want to feel the frequency or the emotion of love. So we go out into the world and we try to find ways to release that chemical in our body so that we can feel the emotion of love. And then from there, once we have the release of it, it goes away and then we have to go into it again. A lot of times also when we fall in love, we'll have that chemical released for, I think they say it's like right around 6 months, 6 to 9 months, and then it starts to diminish. And that's when you really find out, is this somebody I really want to spend the rest of my life with? Because the chemical is no longer there, and you start to see the patterns outside of the chemical that is, they say when you're falling in love with somebody, and I'll say that I've had this experience, especially when I was younger, that when that chemical is released, you're seeing the best in somebody else, and they're seeing the best in you. And it's such a beautiful place to connect. But we can have that same connection through frequency to where we can actually use it for ascension. And I want to talk a little bit about that as we continue on. But so anyway, so that's the Hertz wave. So then if we move over to the scalar wave, or a scalar frequency of love, which is measured. So the Hertz wave is measured at 528. So the same would be for a scalar wave. So I'm not exactly sure, but when I see the difference just energetically between a Hertz wave and a scalar wave, is the Hertz wave, it kind of goes out and then it just kind of diminishes as it continues to go out. So if you think space and time, that it only goes out so far and then it stops. And as it stops, it kind of all stops. How can I, maybe like when you throw something into the water and then the ring goes out and out and out, and then eventually it just goes calm again. That would be like a Hertz wave. But at the same time, above that is a scalar wave, and the scalar wave isn't going like this. It's just like this, and it's very calm. Just even with me going like this and tapping into it, can you guys feel it in your body? It just feels calm and peaceful, exact. It's crystal clear. And it's that frequency of, what we could call it, of source, because love at a scalar frequency isn't really 528. Love in a scalar frequency, if it's measured through the experience of our DNA at 963, is 963, right? It's just experiencing love as source. And we can put any emotion there. So, what is it to experience joy? in the frequency of 963. So joy in a hertz wave, I believe, is like 432. So joy through the frequency of source would still be 963, but you would be experiencing joy at 963. So yes, we could convert it and just say it's a frequency at 430. Would I say 432 in a scalar wave? But really, once it's in a scalar wave, what happens? We take out the observation of our programmed body. We take out the observation of the programmed mind, and we step into a frequency. And when we're identifying in frequency, there is no programming. So everything is clean, everything is pure, everything is exact. So, how do we move from emotion or the programmed body to frequency? And that's what I wanted. I want to do a little process today to show you how easy it really is. But I would say the first thing is to recognize when you're identifying in an emotion or a chemical, or if you're identifying in a frequency. And that awareness is, for me, it's everything. I mean, if you know where you're creating from or where you're thinking from, it changes everything. It changes everything. And so I think before we continue to talk, let me just see if there's something else coming in around this. Sorry if you're listening to a podcast, I'm being quiet. I always have to do that shout out. I'm still here. Just give me a moment. Um, okay, this is what's coming to me. And I I feel like this is important. So we very much, as especially those of us that are really tapping into the quantum experience of the body, the quantum experience of the mind, that we're really moving past that programmed reality. Let's just put it that way. That we are organically moving into communication and identity in frequency. And let me give you the perfect example of this. And for some of you, you may have heard me say this because I think I just said this in a class the other day, but I have a hard time looking at Facebook and Instagram, and ooh, it just, I can't do it. It's just too overwhelming. It's just too much. And I finally sat back and I was like, okay, what is it that I have such a strong aversion to? Like, why is there so much static? And immediately the intelligence turned on and showed me. And it showed me that everybody's speaking through information. It's, oh, this is this. Did you know this? Hey, did you know? Blah, blah, blah. It's this, it's that, it's the blah, blah, blah. Or I had this, and this is this. And everybody's speaking through the intelligence of their mind or what they learned or what they know. It's information. And as we begin to raise our frequency and we start to identify more and more in the frequency of our experience, and you could call it this source intelligence within our DNA, or we start to just raise the frequency of our body, we organically start to move our consciousness into a higher frequency that's beyond the intellect. And when we are bombarded with things that are just information, it feels dysresonance because it's hitting somewhere where we're not existing anymore. You could say it's not where we're holding consciousness anymore. And so what I realized is, oh, okay. So we need to find a way to deliver a message in frequency. And of course that's what we're always doing, and it's really fun, but it made me sit back and wonder, how do we deliver information in frequency versus through the intellect? And so that's what we can play with here in a little bit. I think it's a fun topic of discussion because eventually we'll all be speaking through frequency, and I'm not talking emotion, I'm talking frequency. So a feeling is more of a frequency, and emotion is a chemical. All right. So I want to do a process and then we'll open it up and we'll talk about different things that come through because I have a feeling we're going to have a really fun conversation around this one. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to ascend an emotion to frequency. And then there's going to be an activation that I'll put the link connected to this on the recording. I did it the other day and it was really fun. So I'm not going to redo an activation. I want to do a process instead. But know that there is an activation of ascending emotion to frequency that is on the YouTube channel. It'll go out, I think, tomorrow or Friday. Okay, so just feel into your life. Let's just give you a moment. Just feel into your life an emotion or something that you're wanting to take more from a programmed experience of it into frequency. So I'll give you a moment to just kind of tap into that. And then just go ahead and shut your eyes and just bring that, whatever it is, if it's an emotion or if it's an event that's causing an emotion, go ahead and just bring that into your mind's eye. And then ask to be shown or ask to have the experience of what it is in a Hertz wave. And just notice what your body feels like. So there's information. The one beautiful thing about emotion is that emotion has information. We don't actually have to go into a full chemical response to receive the information that is showing us. As soon as we feel the chemicals start to release in the body, we can immediately bring our awareness to it and receive the information of what it's showing us. So now the next step is that you're holding it in a Hertz wave. Step back and observe the wave and receive the information it's showing you. So, does it feel, is it fear, static? Just name it for what it is. It could just be uncomfortable. Okay, so now I want you to open your eyes back up so you can just shake it all out. We're resetting, resetting. All right, and now I'm going to have you go back and we're going to do something different. So, thinking about this same event, I want you to shut your eyes. And now I want you to activate the frequency, and I'll do it with you, of 963 through the intelligence of your cells, of your DNA. So just feeling that as it turns on in every cell of your body, raising the frequency of your body. And then as you allow your body to turn on this frequency, just placing the event into the frequency that's being released. So just with your intention, just placing the event or the emotion, whatever it is, into that space. And now I want you to take your thoughts, your consciousness, and I want you to place your consciousness or your thoughts into the frequency of 963 of the body. So, what you're going to notice is that you move out of the mind and into the body. And all you're doing is you're focusing on the frequency. That's all you're doing. Just focusing on the frequency of source and asking that frequency to release. And if you're not feeling it, that's okay. The intention is enough. The practice is there. You will begin to attune to it in time. And just notice how everything gets really quiet. And now just noticing what it feels like when you recall your intention of what you're ascending. And just notice how the frequency may shift just a little bit by bringing your attention back to it. Now push it back into the frequency of 963 through the body. Your body is attuning it because your body is the frequency of source. It's transcribed in your DNA. And just by bringing your attention there, it turns on. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about why we're doing this. So, first of all, you just brought the emotion or an event or something that you're working through and you put it into the frequency and you did it through your body. Now that you know how to do this, letting that frequency turn on, bringing your thoughts into the body and attuning it to the frequency that turned on. Why do we want to do that? Well, it's because we're putting our consciousness into the frequency that's transcribed in the DNA and we're attuning. We're not doing it because we're looking for an answer. The practice is to be able to hold your thoughts in the frequency. And really, what will happen is you're going to go to a place of very little thought to no thought because you're attuning to the feeling of the frequency, not the emotion, the feeling. What does the frequency feel like? Well, what happens is you go more into the body. Now, I want you to shut your eyes just one more time. Ask the frequency of source to turn on into your body and allow yourself to have the experience of what it feels like. All right, so when you're ready, I'll let you go ahead and open your eyes. And I am going to remove the pin and bring you. So I don't know who's talking right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and mute everybody. And let's open it up to discussion. I want to hear what your experience was in that. And if you have questions, right now is the good part. So please don't be shy. Let's hear how you're feeling. Yeah, Ariana.
Hi, I'm this is so interesting because I guess my question would be, could the Hertz wave kind of be a step or a bridge toward the scalar frequency?
I would say yes. Then that's where I wanted you to turn around and actually see that the emotion has information.
Hmm.
And the reason why is that a lot of us, I'm not saying all of us, but a lot of us have more of that well, what do they call it? There's so many labels, and that kind of makes me like, but let's say you're an empath, right? Well, really, what is an empath? It's you're feeling other people or the environment. You're feeling the energy that's there, and then that energy comes into your body, and then you're having that experience. Well, that's why it's so important to know what is my energy when I'm just by myself. What do I feel like when I'm connected to source? What is that feeling? And really, really getting to know it. Then getting to know it within your own thoughts. Okay, so now I know what I feel like when I'm in the frequency of source. And then when I have a thought that doesn't match that frequency, I can recognize that right away. So then you're able to have an awareness of this is what I'm like in the purest of source. This is what I'm like when I am in my programming. So you decipher between the difference. And then in that you have choice. Okay, well, do I want to listen to this or do I want to go back here? And then when we get really good at that, we can go out into the world and then we can have all of the stuff going on around us. And when we hit something and we're like, ooh, that's a different frequency, we, instead of bringing it in and then feeling exhausted and like feeling everybody else's energy and, oh my gosh, I don't even want to go in public anymore because blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, I just hit a frequency that isn't mine. Is that important for me to know? There's information, right? Because frequency has information. And it's either yes or no. And most of the time, it's not important because it's not important for you to read where everybody in the world is. Let's say it's somebody that maybe is close to you and you're like, oh, they're having a hard time. How would I like what how would I open up to this? Well, I'm just sensing that maybe you need to talk. Just know I'm here. And then
Mhm.
boom, that free you created that thing. You're not taking in the information anymore. You did what was needed to be done, and then you move back into your home space.
I love that. Thank you.
Of course, that was a great question. I feel like I maybe didn't answer your question, but that's where it went.
I got what I needed.
Okay, perfect. Kathy. Let's see, there's two Kathy. We'll go Kathy Reed and then we'll go with Kathy.
When we did the exercise, what I felt was I could feel it from the level where it was like stutter stop, and then I got the information out, and then I could feel the frequency come in, and that was where every cell was moving. It's like it was just moving up and out, and
Mm,
that's what I was feeling. But thank you, because I feel I know the difference now.
I love it. Thank you for sharing, Kathy. Kathy?
I- I'm just getting over laryngitis, so I'm sorry, but no, it was really good, and I want to say thank you because I I use a copper card all the time, more than the cards, but I feel like I'm getting in literally to like a vortex and a different thing, and like this. It's so immediate. But I've been working since I started with you last year in the summer, and so now it's like immediate. So but putting it from what you said, it was so much easier now. I have to go back and listen to this on the replay, but from what you said about the feeling and something that I've been working on that I still get triggered. Of course, it's family thing, but I noticed that this is it's been easier. But with what how you said that, I noticed it was so quick, and all of a sudden I was just like, oh my God, I was in it, but then listening to you, and I feel like I moved just so quickly,
Mm.
like really so quickly. And I was like, oh my God. So I have to practice that and go back and listen. So when I had that thought or that feeling comes, the emotion, the feeling, and go. So I want to say thank you. So I love that.
I love that share. And this it is, and what I love about what you shared is that you're going to go and practice it. And that is what we all want to be doing, right? Is that so now we have a tool, we can turn on that, we can bring the experience, and then we focus on the feeling of the frequency instead of the emotion. And it ascends the emotion. And it really can happen that quickly. And if we all just bring this into our life and practice it, and not that we're going to do it perfect all the time, but then we get to witness what it's like to live in frequency and not the programmed body. So what's the other side of frequency? Well, it's the programmed reality. That's what it is. It's our belief systems. It's this, it's that, because that's what's triggering the emotion. Because the emotion is triggered through the primal body or the programmed body. And that fine tuning of the awareness of where am I? And then as soon as we realize, ooh, I just went out into the Hertz wave. I'm out in the sea, right? And then we can come back in and go into the it's just this, right? And I love that your body can turn that frequency on so quickly because that's where the more we practice turning on the codes and the frequency and letting that turn on, the more our body recognizes this is my innate state. And it's easier and easier just to say, oh, turn it on. And it literally turns on and you have somewhere to go. I know that sounds bizarre, but I can feel it in you. When you were speaking, I could feel that frequency in you.
Well, I have to say, when we were doing the program, um, the first time and we got to the 11, that's like was it. And
Mhm.
it started, but now I can do it. I have the codes, I can see them without even looking at anything, 'cause, like anything, you work with it. And so, but now it doesn't matter what it is and it starts. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a beautiful share, Kathy. Dennis?
Yes, when I first started with the meditation, I thought of what emotion. So fear came up for me. So I felt the fear, and I felt the grounding of the fear, and my mind immediately went to, oh, good, I'm grounded. It's good to be grounded. And then when I started bringing in 963, and then I was just very, very soothing, and I saw, and my consciousness then went, you can be grounded without having to go through that fear.
Mhm.
And then through the second exercise, the realization was, oh, good, I'm glad I realized that fear, because then when I'm in that state, or any state that is in that emotional quality, I'll know, am I in that state, or am I in the soothing state? So as Kathy and Abriana said too, it's really good to feel and then consciously know the difference.
Amazing share. And absolutely, because what I also love about the way you shared that, Dennis, is that yes, you had maybe the feeling of or emotion of fear or what however you want to see it, but you immediately received it all as information, right? Because fear has information in it. And that's another way as we're ascending past emotion is really to master what is emotion and to be able to hit the information that is trying to give us before our body goes into the chemical response. And it sounds like that's what you did because you didn't go into a full chemical response, right? So as soon as you realize, oh, that's fear, you were able to stop the chemical response. You, in your case, you grounded it, and if you really wanted to, you could sit in it a little bit more and receive the information. Well, how do we receive information? The same way we would attune to frequency, we can attune to, because as soon as you go, okay, that's fear, unless the chemical is fully released, you're in the information stage of that sphere. You haven't moved into the emotion, you're in the feeling of it. This is the feeling of fear. Then if you're like, okay, well, now I'm going to get the information of what is inside the fear. So you're observing the feeling of fear and you're taking the information of what it's showing you. You're not judging it. You're not trying to change it. You're just witnessing the information that it's showing you. And it may feel uncomfortable. And that's why we can just go ahead and ascend it into 963 and then have the experience by attuning our consciousness in that space because it's a little bit more spacious, but it also is a little bit different a way of receiving information because it may take a little bit longer. Why would that be true? Because you moved your consciousness into a higher frequency of the fear. So until your consciousness hits the frequency of the information, it may take a while. And that's why we have to fine tune our consciousness until we can hit the information that way. Does that make sense?
Wow, yes. Oh my gosh. And you're right. And for some reason, I wanted to move out of that fear quickly. And now that I know I don't have to move out of that quickly because I have the tools to know how to move out of it. So play with it a little bit.
Yeah. Perfectly said. Perfectly said, because you may get a little bit more information before you want to ascend it, because it may have something that might be easier for you to see than because it could take you longer for you to see it in the ascended state, just because it'll take you longer for your consciousness to hit the information because you went into a higher frequency.
Thank you. Yeah.
Does everybody understand? Because this is like such good stuff. Yeah, I would go back and listen to it and then well, we'll just leave it at that. But that was a great share. Thank you, Dennis. Okay, I'm not sure who was next. Was it Lisa, Sandy, or Jody? There's nobody with, oh, Donna.
Lisa.
Oh, it's Lisa. Okay, Lisa. Go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, just wanted to say thank you. I had to pull over and stop since I was kind of in between transit. But my intention was to actually clear, I know this was a big one, but to clear my own Akashic records and the attachments and the stories, the energy that's attached to them, so that they could be clean and pure. So I think that's where I had been, we'll say, hooked. That's what I was processing through my body that I was maybe not so consciously aware of. And so really pulling away and not hooking into any other information outside of myself, and stopping that addiction, because it truly is an addiction. Like you mentioned with Facebook or any of it, it's all, I don't want to say static, but you can really feel it. And I had the flash of a show that was called, it was Empath, but it was a Star Trek episode. And the woman, her name was Jewel, actually. And she was an empath and she couldn't speak. And they like beat up Captain Kirk. And so she touched him and took all his wounds and brought those wounds into her body and then healed it. That's what empaths do. It's kind of like a empath magic. But I saw that we are transcending the empathic label, because that's also a label. And when we drop all these labels, because humans, we just want to label everything, we want to judge everything. And so the gift of free will is saying, divine will, overwrite this, because free will is also a looping system. So it's a gift that we have to keep continuing to give ourselves and saying, no, I want out of that looping system too. So no, I think after that process that we just did, it kind of released the energy of that, oh, you need to transmute this through your body. Even that story has to go too. So no, thank you. I released code 8 recently for the DMT journey. And on my way, I had a license plate in front of me that said Domino's. And I've always heard the story that it'll fall like dominoes, because that's what we're collapsing, is the illusion.
Mhm.
And so getting confirmation is valid, but we just have to see it's all information, and however we're processing it and what lenses we're processing it through is essential. It's key.
Mm.
So just being more in a, not just a neutrality, but just even that part, I was like, no, that's still, you're still observing, it's still sucking you in. So thank you. It's been a gift and an honor, because while all your stuff is coming up, you just got to laugh at it and say, wow, this is great. Some more is going. So thank you very much.
I want to just reflect something back, and this is what's coming through as you're speaking, is we always are looking for the answer that is going to fix us, right? Like that's just what the ego wants is, oh, well, if I find out why I'm this way, then I'll know what to do, or I'll be healed, or whatever it is. And it's like that's the answer. And it's not that way, right? Like it's such an old paradigm way of healing. It's once we realize we're in a program, which we always are, right? That's why if we learn to live our life by seeing life, seeing what's there, and then putting it into the field, attuning our consciousness, seeing what it is from there, moving into that space of stillness, and then we do it again. That's why it's a 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. And if we live our lives with that all the time, there's nothing to find out. There's nothing to clear. It's like we're not, there is no magic pill that, oh, if I find this one, why I'm this way, the root cause. I think I have a YouTube out there that's like why the root cause will always keep you stuck. Because really there is no root cause. Like you can go to the root cause, but you don't want to, that's not going to be the answer. It's just that's the last thing for you to see and then ascend it, right? And my point to this is that with, oh, I'm going to go get my Akashic records read, or I'm going to go do this, and then I'm going to find out who I am and why I am the way I am. You guys, who cares? Like it's not helping. It's just giving the ego more identity of why you are the way you are. Well, what should we be focusing on? What we're becoming. That what we should be focusing is on is 963. It's the field. So, and you guys have heard me on some of my interviews. It's once we know what the field is, that is where we want to be holding consciousness all the time, and the awareness of whether or not that's where we're holding our consciousness, and not that we're going to be able to do it perfect. That's not what this is about. It's just recognizing, am I looping in all of the behaviors that are feeding the ego, or am I attuning my consciousness to a frequency that I can't see right now? That's a lot harder. It's a lot easier to go digging and finding identity. And believe me, there's a lot of people out there that will want to tell you who you are and why you are that way. But how is that helping you? It's not. Like you think it is because it feeds the ego, and the ego is like, ooh, now I have it. Now I know I am this way and I'm going to get better. And then it just loops you right back in, right? And then you're looping in that and you're like, oh my gosh, I found out why I'm this way. Why am I still this way? Because we don't heal that way. We don't change that way. We change by becoming something different. And it's a lot harder to hold consciousness in what you're becoming than to identify in what or who you think you are. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you, Lisa. Let's go with what is it? I don't know. Who's next?
Leanne. Leanne's next.
Hi, Leanne.
Hi. Awesome. Hey, I can't see you, Jules.
Oh, I can see you.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Um, this is interesting. I'm going to do my best to verbalize this, and hopefully you'll be able to understand. My experience was, first off, I've had an exceptionally great 963 day.
Mhm.
I've felt like I've spent most of the day in that
Mhm.
frequency. So when you were explaining the exercise and I went to look for the emotion, I was really looking. I brought up so I got the situation in my head, and then I was like, where's that emotion? What is it? And I had such a hard time finding it. Okay, so then I did find it. And I'm trying to do what you're telling me to do, but I keep forgetting what that was, what that emotion was. That's all I can say. And until I heard these reflections, I thought, okay, I kind of bombed that exercise, but really, I just kept forgetting and going back in my happy, my calm stillness place. So that was really cool.
I love that share. And what I love about this as well is that when we're in the field, we do forget what it's like to have emotion and to live in the program body, because it's so far from the experience that we're having that it's almost impossible to go back to the experience unless, and that's why this is so powerful, unless you leave the field. So when you leave the field and you start experiencing the program body again, I left the field. Because when you're in the field, I can remember when I wrote my very first book, that's why they said that I was writing it. They're like, write this down because you're going to forget what it's like to be in this like state of consciousness you're in right now. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever, right? But it's so true. And you just had that experience of what it's like when you're in the field.
Another interesting thing was I felt such a weight shift.
Mm.
It was like when I was looking to retrieve that emotion, it felt so dense. just started feeling a heaviness. That's the only way I can say it. And I just really wanted to go back where I was before that. And it just felt like a weight shift.
Amazing, Shirley Ann. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I
Thank
love
you.
that you had the experience from the other space. So, because that's just as important and just as powerful.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, now it's either Donna or Sandy. Sandy.
Very interesting that we're doing this process today, because I was playing in most of the day with 963 and having the experience of my life here and here at the same time. If that makes sense. And then I was playing with it by going, okay, so I'm going to just take in the observation when I breathe in. I'm taking in the observation and I'm bringing it into 963 and I'm breathing out the expression of it. So I was been playing all day. And then while I was waiting for this call to happen, I got into the old pattern of eating unconsciously. And my intention is to live intentionally. So you said bring in something, and I brought that, eating too much, eating, overeating, blah, blah, blah. And I looked and I saw that the information that it was giving me was the pull of resistance.
Mm.
And I have to say that I really would love some clarity on that, because I can be in 963 and still experience the pull of resistance. And sometimes I just give into it.
So what I'm hearing, it's not so much resistance, it's distraction. It's more of a distraction, right? So, and that's where discipline, spiritual discipline, girl, spiritual discipline. This is how you master your own mastery, is in those moments. It's pushing you. You either can push yourself consciously further into the field to have the experience beyond what you were having before, or you can go back into the programmed experience, because the truth is it is a distraction. But in that place of distraction is, and I'm not going to say it's distraction out of the field, is what I'm saying, right? So I don't necessarily see it as a resistance. I see it more as like a little shiny thing that could entertain the ego. And you're right, it's a little shiny thing. Oh, the ego can be entertained. Like, let's go do this. But in that moment, you being a master have a choice. You can either allow the distraction to pull you through, because you are allowing it. You're not a victim, right? A master has a choice always. It's just whether or not you're choosing to step into your mastery. And stepping into mastery is a lot harder than letting your ego be distracted and going into that space. It's a lot harder. It takes a lot of discipline. But now you can just turn on that frequency and then allow your consciousness and your thoughts to attune into the feeling of it. And then just notice, like, can I even do that now? Can I even like repeat these patterns that are from the program experience of myself when I'm in the field? And if the answer is yeah, you're not there, right? So that's your practice now, is what happens when I do this? Distraction, distraction of the ego, right? Put it back in the back seat, put a little candy, and then move back into the field.
Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
Of course. Donna, thank you, Sandy.
What great shares. When Dennis was speaking, it brought up a question that came to me while we were doing the exercise, or before the exercise, because you were talking about the Hertz wave and then moving into the highest frequency. And ultimately it's 963 and not whatever the number was, 432. And I had that in my mind. And then when he was speaking, I was thinking about these things that we call negative emotions. I know we're not supposed to judge. So like fear or anger or hatred, um, ugly things that, and you like, so my question, it's kind of theoretical, like, what's the ultimate, like that thing that I'm like, hatred, say hatred, like that's like the worst thing I could think of. You carry it to its nth degree in 963. Do you get love? I mean, do you get like purity there? Or is it like something so unthinkable? Like who would want to go to the ultimate and ultimate scalar wave of that unless it collapses on itself and becomes 963. So that's kind of what I was thinking about, and I figured you would know more, you would have a better reflection than I have to
I
get
love
some
this
kind of
question. So the
yeah.
truth is, when we're in the field of 963, it's the same, right? We like what, so if we're consciously saying, okay, I'm gonna have the experience of love at 963, there's still a gap between consciousness and the experience of 963. Okay, so,
Uh-huh.
and that's just going to be our experience. Like, but when we fully move into the field, which we can do with practice and we can hold it for a certain amount of times, and when we're doing that, we're attuning our consciousness to the experience of source and what it is to actually hold consciousness there. And then when we come out and we're identifying, okay, well, is it this? Is it that? What is this? And we're having those kind of thoughts, then we know our consciousness is just outside the field. And there's nothing wrong with
Mm-hmm.
that because we're
Mm-hmm.
having awareness of our experience in that. So what I would invite you to do is next time you're like, let's say you feel something like fear or hatred or anger, just like if you have a moment to turn on the field and ascend it through that and see what it is, right?
Okay.
Because the truth is that it can't exist in the field,
Right.
like not in the
Okay.
way that we experience it in the program body. It's going to be two different experiences because they're two different frequencies. It can't be the same. So like this coming, I'll just give you guys like this coming Sunday, we're having a special on our oxytocin. Like we have these 4 oils. I think most of you probably know of them. We're gonna have a special on them. So there's oxytocin, dopamine, melatonin, and serotonin.
Serotonin. Okay.
Right. And they're all different frequencies, but they're all in the frequency of 963. They're all scalar waves, right? So they have the Hertz wave of the emotion, and then it's coded at 963 at scalar frequency. So it can, like, it's just something that we can play in so that we can kind of be like, okay, like how can I can use a tool to consciously attune to the difference, because this is literally coded to take an emotion to a frequency of 963, and we get to have those experiences, and it doesn't mean you have to have the oil to do it, but it can be a fun way of experiencing that shift. And so when you said that about hatred, of course we're not going to have a hatred oil, but it's no different than joy. What's joy when I'm here? And what's joy when I'm here? It doesn't necessarily have to be a negative emotion, because either way,
Uh-huh.
it's going to move into 963.
Perfect.
And it's
Okay.
fun to play
I
with.
will play with that.
Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I feel like we are probably at time. Yes, we are. So thank you so much for joining me today. And
That was great.
thank you so much. And we hope to see you next month when we do this again. We'll send out an email for that. Love you all.
Thank you. Thank you.